The haunting of the old wooden house. The old wooden house stood at the edge of a forgotten forest, its warped beams and sagging roof, a testament to years of neglect. Locals in the nearby town of Millfield spoke of it in hushed tones, warning curious adventurers to stay away. It wasn't just the creaking timbers or the overgrown yard that inspired fear, it was the stories of ghostly lights and strange sounds that had plagued the house for decades. It all began with the Andrews family, who had built the house in the late 1800s. They were pioneers looking to settle in the area, their dream of a quiet life shattered when tragedy struck. One cold winter night, a fire broke out, consuming much of the house and taking the lives of the youngest Andrews child, Clara, and her grandmother. The surviving family members abandoned the home, leaving it to rot in solitude. Over time, tales of supernatural activity began to spread. The phenomenon of the ghost lights. For years, passers-by reported seeing faint flickering lights moving through the windows of the old house, even though no one lived. The lights, which locals referred to as ghost lights, seemed to defy explanation. They were pale and cold, like the glow of a lantern in the distance, but they moved unnaturally, darting from one room to another. Some claimed to see them hovering just beyond the shattered windows, as if watching the outside. One particularly chilling account came from a hunter named Bill Travers. Bill had been tracking deer in the woods when night fell, forcing him to cut through the property to reach the main road. As he approached the house, he saw the ghost lights. At first he thought they were caused by fireflies or perhaps distant flashlights, but as he drew closer, he realized the lights were moving inside the house, flickering as if carried by unseen hands. Bill swore he heard faint whispers accompanying the lights, like the murmurs of a conversation just out of reach. Panicked, he fled, vowing never to return. The house became a rite of passage for local teenagers, who dared each other to venture inside after dark. It was a test of bravery, though many returned pale and shaken, reluctant to speak of what they'd seen. Among these was Emma Green, a high school senior who prided herself on being fearless. When her friends dared her to spend an hour in the house alone, she accepted without hesitation. Armed with nothing but her phone and a flashlight, Emma entered the house through the broken front door. The air inside was heavy, the musty smell of decay mingling with the faint, acrid scent of something burnt. She walked through the rooms, her footsteps echoing on the warped floorboard. As she reached the staircase, her flashlight began to flicker. That's when she saw it, a faint light glowing at the top of the stairs. It was pale blue, shimmering like mist, and it seemed to pulse rhythmically, as if alive. Emma froze, her breath catching in her throat. She raised her phone to take a picture, but before she could, the light moved gliding down the stairs. It was accompanied by a sudden drop in temperature and a sound like a child's giggle, faint and chill. Emma bolted from the house, leaving behind her flashlight and any pretense of bravery. When her friends found her outside, trembling and incoherent, they knew she had seen something more than just shadow. The legend of Clara Andrews. The stories of the ghost lights and other strange occurrences were often linked to the spirit of Clara Andrews, the young girl who had perished in the fire. According to local legend, Clara's ghost remained tied to the house, unable to move on. Some believe she was searching for her grandmother, whose remains had never been recovered from the ash. Others thought she was protecting the house, ensuring no one disturbed her final resting place. A few brave souls claim to have seen Clara's ghost. She was often described as a little girl with long dark hair, wearing a soot-streaked nightgown. Her presence was usually accompanied by the ghost lights and the faint smell of smoke. While her apparition seemed harmless, those who encountered her spoke of an overwhelming sadness that lingered long after they left the house. One account came from a paranormal investigator named Henry Collins, who visited the house with a small team. Armed with cameras and recording equipment, they spent the night documenting their findings. Around midnight, Henry captured a video of what he described as a shadow figure in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Moments later, his audio recorder picked up the sound of a child's voice whispering, "Don't go." The team left shortly after, shaken by the experience. An unexpected connection. Not all the stories about the house were sinister. Some visitors reported feeling a strange sense of comfort while inside. One such account came from Martha Reynolds, a writer who rented a cabin near the woods while working on it. Martha stumbled upon the house during one of her walks and, out of curiosity, decided to explore. Despite the house's eerie reputation, Martha felt drawn to it. She spent hours wandering through its rooms, taking notes and sketching the details of its architecture. While she acknowledged the house's tragic history, she didn't experience anything overtly frightening. Instead, she felt an inexplicable sense of calm, as if the house was welcoming. Martha's perspective on the house challenged the prevailing narrative. She believed that Clara's ghost, if it existed, wasn't malevolent but simply misunderstood. To her, the ghost lights and other phenomena were expressions of a restless spirit longing for connection. The forest's silent witness. The old wooden house stood as a silent witness to its own dark history, its peeling paint and broken windows hiding secrets only the bravest dared to uncover. It had become more than just a building, it was a symbol of the unknown, a place where the past refused to die. As the stories of the ghost lights continued to spread, so too did the mystery of what truly happened within its wall. For the town of Millfield, the house was both a source of fear and fascination. Some avoided it altogether, while others sought it out, hoping to glimpse the supernatural. What they found, however, often raised more questions than answers, leaving them with an unsettling truth. The old wooden house wasn't just haunted, it was alive with the echoes of its. The increasing encounters. As word of the old wooden house spread, its reputation as a paranormal hotspot attracted visitors from beyond the small town of Millfield. Thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and skeptics alike ventured into the house, hoping to experience something extraordinary. Many returned with tales of unexplained phenomena, though few could explain the haunting sense of unease that clung to them long after they left. One notable visitor was a college student named Liam Parker, who had heard about the house from a paranormal podcast. Determined to debunk the stories, Liam equipped himself with a video camera and set out to spend an entire night inside. He entered the house just before sunset, setting up his equipment in the living room where the ghost lights were most often reported. For hours, nothing happened. Liam began to grow restless, mocking the stories and loudly challenging any spirits to show themselves. It wasn't until midnight that the atmosphere shifted. The air grew colder, and a faint, rhythmic tapping sound began to echo through the house. Checking his camera, Liam noticed the lens fogging up, despite the summer. Then, as he stood frozen, the ghost lights appeared. They started as faint pinpricks of light near the ceiling, gradually growing brighter and moving in erratic pattern. Liam's camera captured the lights, but to his horror, it also recorded a shadowy figure standing just behind him. The figure appeared childlike, its head tilted as if curious. Panicking, Liam fled, abandoning his camera and never speaking of the experience. Unanswered question. While the ghost lights were the most common phenomenon, other strange occurrences were reported over the year. Objects left inside the house seemed to move on their own, appearing in different rooms or vanishing altogether. Visitors often heard faint whispers or the sound of footsteps on the upper floor, even when no one else was present. One of the more unsettling mysteries involved the burned remains of the kitchen. Despite being destroyed in the fire, the kitchen was said to emit the faint smell of freshly baked bread. Some speculated that this was tied to Clara's grandmother, who had been known for her cooking before the tragedy. Paranormal investigators who examined the area reported high levels of electromagnetic activity, though they could offer no explanation for this. The most unnerving reports came from those who stayed near the house for extended periods. They described vivid dreams of fire and smoke, often waking up gasping for it. A few even claimed to see Clara in their dreams, her soot-streaked face pleading for the tragic connection. One day, a retired historian named Eleanor Ward visited the house, armed with extensive research on the Andrews family. Eleanor's investigation uncovered details that had been lost to time. Clara had been holding a lantern the night of the fire, trying to help her grandmother find her way. The lantern had tipped over, sparking the blaze that consumed much of the house. Eleanor believed that Clara's spirit might still be tied to the lantern, which had never been recovered. This revelation sparked a renewed interest in the house, as paranormal enthusiasts speculated that finding the lantern could bring closure to Clara's restless. A group of volunteers organized a search, scouring the property for any sign of the missing artifact. They found fragments of glass and charred wood in the basement, but no intact lantern. However, the search seemed to stir something within the house. Reports of ghost lights increased dramatically in the weeks that followed, and some visitors claimed to hear Clara's voice calling for her grandmother. A desperate attempt. Determined to help Clara find peace, a local psychic named Margot Reynolds conducted a seance in the. She gathered a small group of participants, including Eleanor Ward, and set up a circle in the living room. Candles flickered as Margot called out to Clara, her voice calm and steady. "Clara, if you are here, we want to help you," Margot said. "We know you're looking for your grandmother. Can you give us a sign?" For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, one of the candles went out, followed by another. The temperature in the room plummeted, and the ghost lights appeared, swirling around the circle like fireflies. Margot closed her eyes, her face tense with concentration. "She's here," Margot whispered. "She's sad, but she's not angry. She wants to go, but she doesn't know." Suddenly, the group heard a sound like a child's laughter, soft but unmistakable. The lights flickered and faded, leaving the room in silence. When the seance ended, Margot told the group that Clara's spirit was ready to move on, but needed closure. She suggested holding a memorial at the house, honoring Clara and her grandmother. The memorial was a simple but heartfelt affair. The townspeople gathered around the house, bringing flowers and candles. A local pastor led a prayer, and Eleanor Ward shared stories about Clara and the Andrews family. As the sun set, the ghost lights appeared one last time, hovering above the house before fading into the house grew quiet after that. The ghost lights were no longer seen, and the whispers and footsteps ceased. While the house remained abandoned, it no longer felt malevolent. Instead, it stood as a somber reminder of the tragedy that had occurred there. The legacy. Though the ghost lights were gone, the legend of the old wooden house endured. Visitors continued to share their stories, weaving new layers into the mystery. For some, the house was a place of fear. For others, it was a symbol of resilience and the enduring power of men. Years later, the property was purchased by a preservation society, which turned the house into a historical. Guided tours recounted the Andrews family's story and the strange phenomena that had made the house famous. The lantern, though never found, became a central piece of the narrative, representing the thin line between the past and the present. For the town of Millfield, the old wooden house was more than just a haunted building. It was a part of their identity, a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, stories have the power to connect.